Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Today's episode is going to be titled Consistency. There is something in this world that I think is very important as a character trait for a person to have, and that is consistency. But it is something that people seem to lack, and it's frustrating. When I talk to people, I'm not asking for much, just some consistency in what they say and do. But time and time again, I see people contradicting themselves, picking and choosing what suits them while ignoring the rest. Let me give you some examples. Take Christians, for instance. Many of them claim to follow the Bible, but their actions don't always align with what it teaches. The Bible is clear about keeping the Sabbath holy. Sunday is meant to be a day of rest. Yet, plenty of Christians work on Sundays or engage in activities that the Bible speaks against. If you're going to claim that you live by the teachings of your faith, shouldn't you at least be consistent about it? I see this all the time, people cherry picking what they want to follow while disregarding the rest. But this isn't just about religion. People in general are inconsistent in their behavior and beliefs. Many preach about not judging others, saying you never know what someone is going through, so you shouldn't pass judgment. Yet, they turn around and judge certain people anyway. They decide who is worthy of empathy and who isn't, as if there's some unspoken criteria that determine whether someone deserves compassion. Another example is how people talk about body positivity. There's this general rule that you shouldn't make fun of someone's weight because it's cruel and unnecessary. But those same people who defend overweight individuals will mock someone for being unattractive in other ways. If the principle is about not ridiculing someone for things they can't control, shouldn't that apply across the board? But no, somehow certain insults are acceptable while others aren't. Again, it's inconsistency at its finest. This extends to everyday interactions, too. I remember listening to a group of people on a YouTube discussion, and one of them had a rule. He said he didn't want to be part of the conversation if there was excessive ranting, yelling, or anger. Fair enough, right? But then during the same call, he lost his temper, raised his voice, and went on a full-blown rant. How do you expect others to respect a rule that you can't even follow yourself? It's blatant hypocrisy, and it happens all the time. But one of the best examples of inconsistency, one that really gets under my skin, is how people handle certain words, particularly racial slurs. Let's talk about the N word. Some Black Americans in the US are adamant that non Black people shouldn't use it. They say it's offensive, rooted in a painful history, and that it's simply not for others to say. Fine. But then those same people turn around and use the word constantly in casual conversation, in music, in jokes. If a word is so harmful that others shouldn't use it, why is it okay for you to say it? That's not consistency. Now, before anyone gets upset, let's be clear. I'm not using the word in a derogatory way. I'm discussing it in context. If people are going to get mad about that, then they should probably take a deep breath and think about how words and context actually work. If NWA named their group Niggas with Attitude, are we just supposed to pretend the word doesn't exist? Are we supposed to call them N-word with attitude? That's ridiculous. Context matters. But the bigger issue here is the double standard. If you genuinely believe a word is bad and shouldn't be used, then don't use it yourself. To further illustrate the inconsistency, I once knew a woman who had a son with a mental disability. She was strongly against the word retard, so much so that she was actively involved in efforts to get people to stop using it. And you know what? She never said the word herself. That's what consistency looks like. If you oppose something, you don't participate in it. Simple as that. The lack of consistency in people's words and actions makes it hard to take anyone seriously. It makes you wonder, does anyone truly stand by what they say, or is it all just performance? A convenient set of beliefs that people adjust when it suits them. When people can't even stick to their own principles, it starts to feel like everything is fake. How do you trust that anyone means what they say when they contradict themselves so easily? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting perfection. Nobody is flawless, and sometimes people change their minds or evolve in their thinking. But there's a difference between personal growth and outright hypocrisy. If you claim to live by certain values, those values should be evident in your behavior, not just in your words. I know some people will say, well, it's just how humans are. And yeah, that's probably true, but that doesn't make it any less frustrating. It's one thing to acknowledge that people are inconsistent, it's another thing to just accept it without question. Shouldn't we at least strive for some level of integrity? At the end of the day, I know nothing is going to change. People will continue to be inconsistent because that's just how it is. But sometimes you just need to vent about it. Ranting about this stuff doesn't mean I expect the world to suddenly become more logical or fair. It just feels good to let it out. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. So if you're someone who actually tries to be consistent in what you say and do, I respect that. It's rare. But for everyone else, maybe take a moment to think about whether you're really practicing what you preach. If you say something is wrong, don't do it yourself. If you believe in a principle, apply it across the board. Otherwise, what's the point? Because at this rate, it's hard to believe that anyone really means what they say anymore. Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Signing out. Have a good one, guys. Goodbye for now.